Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that the story you've been telling about yourself no longer feels convincing. Not false, just unnecessary. The roles feel distant. The explanations feel forced. The identity feels optional. You still move through the world. You still act, but the narrator is quieter. And a question emerges. If the self is a story, what happens when the story stops? Many philosophical traditions suggest that the self is an illusion. In Eastern philosophies, the idea of a fixed, independent, small self is often treated as a mistake, something created by language, memory, and attachment. Existentialism arrives at a similar place from a different direction. It tells us that the self is not given. It is constructed, maintained, reinforced through interpretation. If that's true, then letting go of the story sounds like freedom. No more defending who you are. No more explaining yourself. No more carrying a narrative that no longer fits. But philosophy rarely gives something without taking something away. Imagine a person who has stopped narrating their life. They do not think of themselves as the kind of person who. They do not interpret events as chapters in a story. They do not frame actions as expressions of identity. They simply respond, moment to moment, situation to situation. At first, this seems peaceful, but now ask a harder question. How does this person decide what matters? Without a story, there is no arc. Without an arc, there is no direction. Without direction, meaning becomes fragile. Narrative may distort reality, but it also organizes it. Now imagine this person is confronted with their past. They are asked to explain something they did years ago, but they no longer identify with the person who acted. They don't deny the action. They simply don't experience continuity with it. Are they responsible? Most moral systems assume a stable subject, someone who persists through time, someone who can say, "That was me." If the self is only a process, responsibility becomes ambiguous. Growth begins to look like escape. Change begins to look like erasure. Letting go of the story may reduce suffering, but it also weakens accountability. For many people, the story does not dissolve gently. It collapses. Trauma has a way of breaking narrative continuity. Events no longer fit into a coherent explanation. The past stops making sense. The future stops feeling connected. People say, "I don't know who I am anymore." This is not metaphorical. It is structural. The story that once organized experience has fractured, and without it, the self becomes difficult to locate. This reveals something important. The story is not just something we tell. It is something we rely on. So we return to the question, can you live without a story? Strictly speaking, yes. Moments still happen. Actions still occur. Consciousness continues. But something changes. Without narration, life loses thickness. Events no longer accumulate meaning. Choices no longer point forward. The past no longer presses on the present. This can feel like liberation, or it can feel like emptiness. And the difference matters. Perhaps the problem is not the existence of narrative, but our attachment to it. Perhaps the issue is not that we tell stories, but that we mistake them for truth. A story can be held lightly. It can be revised, questioned, loosened, but abandoning it entirely may cost more than it gives. Not identity as a prison, not identity as an illusion to be destroyed, but identity as a tool, useful, dangerous, necessary, and never final. If the self is not a thing, and the story is not truth, what remains? Awareness remains. Action remains. Responsibility remains, but differently. Not because this is who I am, but because this is what is happening now. This is not a solution. It is a reorientation. And philosophy rarely offers more than that. The idea that the self is a story can be freeing. But freedom always comes with a cost. Letting go of the narrative may reduce suffering, but it also removes structure. It dissolves identity, but it also dissolves direction. So the question is not simply whether the self is an illusion. The deeper question is this: how much story is necessary to live? And how much is too much? That tension does not resolve cleanly, and perhaps it shouldn't. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. If any of this resonated with you, or if parts of it felt uncomfortable, I'd be interested to hear how you see it. I'll see you next time.